Hello everyone. Most of the ships in Azur Lane were real. Some of them still are, having been preserved as museum ships or by other means for the public to visit as memorials or for educational purposes. Today, I compiled a list of museum ships currently in game, and a few relevant others, to help inform you if your favourite shipgirl is visitable and help you plan a future visit to her, which you should. Museum ships are expensive to maintain and rely on donations and ticket sales to stay afloat, and out of the scrapyard. Going from west to east, we begin with Hornet 2, located at the former Alameda Naval Station in Alameda, California. With Azur Lane sponsoring the USS Hornet Air, Sea and Space Museum's annual CarrierCon event this year, and Hornet being the venue for the EN server's 5th anniversary, we've seen quite a bit of her recently, so perhaps pay her a visit if you're in the area. At the Galveston Naval Museum in Galveston, Texas, is a Gato-class submarine, Calvala, the submarine who sank Shokaku on her maiden voyage. You also have an Esdal-class destroyer escort, USS Stewart, so if you like Hammond 2 specifically, it might be worth checking out. It's not Ham 2 herself, but it's about as close as you're going to get. Heading east to Alabama, we arrive at, Alabama, living out the rest of her days at the Battleship Memorial Park in the Bay of Mobile, alongside the Gato-class submarine USS Drum, a B-52 that didn't figure out the secret to eternal career, and a prototype for the SR-71 Blackbird, just to name a few. Northeast from Alabama is Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, where resides the biggest cinnamon roll of this video, Yorktown 2. Alongside her is Laffy. Okay, technically it's Laffy 2, her L&M Sumner class successor, but they're the same character in AL, so who really gives a shit? Further up north, but only to the south of north, not the north of north, is the showboat herself, North Carolina, chilling in her namestate, specifically Wilmington, North Carolina, as the Battleship North Carolina Museum and Memorial, nestled within her berth and away from any seafood restaurants that could be susceptible to ramming. Speaking of battleship museums, it's everyone's favourite Black Dragon, New Jersey, located in Camden, New Jersey. It's the Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial. As a quick heads up, if anyone watching is planning to pay her a visit, New Jersey is scheduled to enter dry dock in the near future for a little TLC, so it may be best to make the trip sooner rather than later, or at least do that extra bit of research to see if she's even around. Over in Manhattan, New York, is Intrepid, the centrepiece of the USS Intrepid Sea, Air and Space Museum. Definitely worth a visit if you're in the area. It has the only nuclear-guided missile submarine open to the public, as well as a space shuttle orbiter and a whole-ass Concorde. Massachusetts is next, in her home Battleship Cove, located in the Fall River, Massachusetts. There she resides, among the world's largest collection of World War II warships, alongside the Gearing-class Joseph P. Kennedy Jr. and the Below-class Lionfish, to name a few. The final museum ship in the United States, and tied for the newest in-game, is Wider. While not the original ship, a replica has been built at the Wider Pirate Museum in West Yarmouth, Massachusetts, detailing the ship's history from her origins as a slave vessel to a pirate flagship, as well as a number of artifacts from the original ship. Heading east to Europe, we start with Belfast. Laying within the waters of the River Thames, she can be found on Queen's Wharf, London, as a museum ship owned and operated by the Imperial War Museum. About a 10-minute walk from Belfast, in Southwark, London, is the other tied newest museum ship, Golden Hind. Much like Wider, this is merely a one-to-one recreation of Sir Francis Drake's flagship, displayed in a small dock. It is fully capable though, and before settling down in 1996 had circumnavigated the globe, like her original. For our next ship we go all the way to Russia, where Avrora lies on the Petrogradskaya Embankment, St. Petersburg, where she is docked near the Nakhimov Naval School. Due to current world events, making the trip out to her is somewhat difficult, but it can still be done. Next stop, Asia, with Anshan leading the pack. Following her decommissioning in 1992, she was preserved as a museum ship, as a part of the PLA Naval Museum in Xinan District, Qingdao. Anshan's sister ships, Shangshun and Taiyuan, are also museum ships. Shangshun spends her days in Rushan, Shandong, while Taiyuan splits her time between being a museum ship and a training ship at the Dalian Naval Academy in Laohutan Bay, Dalian. Over in Japan lies Mikasa, the last pre-dreadnought, encased in concrete by 1926, saving her from scrapping under the Washington Naval Treaty. Located in Yokosuka, Kawagara Prefecture, she has been bombed during the Second World War and restored multiple times. Unfortunately, most of her equipment are just replicas. That does it for the museum ships that are currently in-game, but there are a number of ships that currently aren't, but are relevant though. So, here's another round of these. First of all, the rest of the Iowas. Iowa herself is in Los Angeles, California. Wisconsin has found her home in Nauticus, Norfolk, Virginia. And Missouri spends her time at Battleship Row, Pearl Harbor, watching over Arizona. Lexington is in Texas, specifically Corpus Christi. She's not the Lexington in-game, rather her Essex-class successor, but Type 2 is the same character and Lexington has already been chased. U-boat time. If you're a fan of U-81, 96, 410, 556, 557, or 1206, then unfortunately your girl didn't get preserved. But one of the Type 7Cs did, U-995, at Laubau Naval Memorial in Laubau, Germany. As for the Type 9C subs, only U-522 is in-game at the time of writing, but 2 have been preserved, making up half the surviving U-boat. U-505 was captured by the US Navy and studied, but now finds herself preserved at the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago, Illinois. The other, U-534, and her museum are located at the Woodside Ferry Terminal, Birkenhead. Kind of ironic that half the remaining U-boats are preserved by their historical enemies, don't you think? You like Eldridge? Well, unfortunately she didn't make it either, but a few Cannon-class destroyer escorts are still around. USS Slater rests in Albany, New York, and the former McCann, now Bauru, is at the Brazilian Navy Cultural Center in Rio de Janeiro. There are many Fletcher-class DDs in-game, and many more in real life. Some of these ended up getting preserved, including the Sullivans in Buffalo, New York, Kidd in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Cassin Young in Boston, Massachusetts, and Velos, formerly Charlotte, Paleophalario, Greece. There is only one remaining Cleveland, and it's not one we have. But if you want to visit the closest things to the ones we do have, the USS Little Rock at the Buffalo Naval and Military Park in Buffalo, New York is your best bet. It should be noted that Little Rock is preserved in her 1960s missile cruiser configuration as opposed to her original gun cruiser form. Speaking of the Buffalo Naval and Military Park, USS Croker also calls it her home. Croker is one of the half a dozen Gato class submarines still around. I've already mentioned 2 in this video, I'm not going to do the rest. For something a bit bigger, there are also 6 Balau class kicking around, although none of them are Archerfish, AL's only current example. These include Bowfin at the Bowfin Submarine and Museum Park in Honolulu, Hawaii, Batfish at War Memorial Park, Muskogee, Oklahoma, and the aforementioned Lionfish who lives with Massachusetts. One of the C-class also managed to scrape by. To be specific, HMS Cavalier, who now resides in the No. 2 dry dock at Chatham Historic Dockyard in Chatham, Kent. Eskimo is our only tribal class destroyer, and unfortunately not the one who survived. That honour goes to the Canadian HMCS Hyder, who operates as a museum ship as part of the HMCS Hyder National Historic Site in Hamilton, Ontario. There's a few more worth noting, though these are not museum ships but rather notable shipwrecks that are known diving spots. Full disclosure, my knowledge on diving is very limited, so this is far from exhaustive. Prince Eugen is particularly notable in this category due to her extremely shallow final resting place. one of her props is above water sometimes. The radiation from the Operation Crossroads nukes has gone and all the fuel oil leaks have been sealed, so the ship is safe to dive and enter. Do be careful if you do though, this ship still has ordnance on board and her torpedo tubes are still loaded. The rest of the Crossroad wrecks are also diveable, though these are much deeper. But if you dive and are a fan of Saratoga, Nargotho, Independence, Pennsylvania, or any of the others that sunk in the blast, it might be worth your time if you can make it out there. And that's all I've got. Every museum ship currently in the game, and a few related others. So what's your thoughts? Have you been to any of these? What's it like? I really should venture out to visit one or more of these someday. Anyway, thank you for your time, and until next time, fair winds and following seas.